The American baby boom generation began on VJ Day 1945. It was 9 months later, in the 31 days of May, that an unprecedented 233,000 births were recorded. By the end of the year, an all-time national record of 3.4 million babies had been born. The biggest baby boom in U.S. history was on. By the time the baby boom ended in 1964, baby boomers totaled 76 million, nearly 1/3 of all Americans alive today. This generation has affected every aspect of national life, from education and business to entertainment and health. Their power and influence is a direct result of their massive size. But like all power, it is a two-sided sword. They were taught the American dream: to get an education, work a job, marry, buy a home, raise a family, and retire to comfort, just as their parents had done. But the fact that there are so many in this generation destroyed that dream and made a lifestyle like their parents almost impossible.
I'm Bill Grayson, one of the 76 million baby boomers born between 1946 and 1964. I've often wondered what makes our generation different from others. We all have the reality of our day-to-day living, and we all have our dreams of an ideal life, which usually includes an education, a job, a home, a family, and retirement. So to find out what makes us different, we've traveled all around the country talking to baby boomers about their dreams and taking a look at their lives.
And I think some people have come to this country thinking that, you know, oh, America is the land of great opportunity. And it is just that, it's opportunity. But opportunity isn't worth anything unless you do something with it.
I filed for citizenship in Germany because I don't believe there's an American dream anymore. I believe there's just nothing here left to stay for.
And the American dream means to me just being happy and, you know, really doing what you really want to do and striving for your goal.
And I feel that the American dream is individuality and independence, and they strive for their own goals. But there are the few that really don't go into that group.
I feel like it's a hypocrisy. The American dream is not real. The men in power just don't know the dream. But I think that dream is still alive in America.
So on the one hand, the baby boom generation can't succeed. And on the other hand, their parents almost couldn't fail.
Looking very pretty and making all the scenes, driving every city and drive suburban dreams. The silver ghost of Hollywood, the Self magazine. The human mannequins, the end by any means. I'm one of the Americans. One of the Americans. I'm one of the Americans. And I'm gone. Living's hard enough alone, once apart to each his own. Lonely heart beneath the stone, I can only wait. And even though your life's a mess, you cash your dreams for loneliness. Catch the last train for success, the hour is getting late.
The American dream, is it a reality or is it a fantasy?
Baby boomers are the most educated generation ever to exist in this country. Nearly 25% are college graduates, as compared to their parents' generation, with only 6% having college degrees. A widely held belief of baby boomers was that if you got a college degree, you would lead a life of abundance. Some are, but most are not.
Now, when you have the baby boom generation, which is a numerically very large generation, starting about 1947, flooding into these systems, the schools, the labor force, and so on. What happened was the promise that was carried forward for them was a promise that was not completely realized. And I think the first and clearest and perhaps most profoundly influential aspect of that affected their lives when the baby boom generation completed their education and entered the world of work. What happened was they found out that all of the investment that they had made in education, all of the things that they had done to adhere to this dream, to the vision that this dream held out, were unrealized because they couldn't find jobs, or they couldn't find jobs that were suited to what their expectations were.
I still think society has a good view of a four-year education, and I'm not sorry I got it. But I don't think that's the answer. I mean, you need some kind of career planning or something, which I never thought of what I was going to do with the degree. I just got it and, you know, then had to decide what I was going to do.
I'd always been brought up with the idea that I'll go to college. It wasn't something my parents said, you will go to college. But they always encouraged that idea, that to go to college and to learn and enjoy yourself. And I was feeling like I just hadn't done something I should have done. So even if I graduate from college and never use it, I won't feel that it's wasted. I just have to do it to feel complete.
How do I earn a living? My history degree doesn't help me with that at all. The marketplace is so flooded with degrees like mine that it doesn't help me as far as being competitive in the job market. And there's so many people in my position, and I don't know what they're doing, and I haven't quite figured out what to do about it myself.
I didn't like the career options that were available to me with an economics degree, and so I took the exams to go to law school and did very well, and decided that, gee, that must mean I should be a lawyer, or at least that I'd be good at it. It's very important for me to be good at whatever I do.
We visited several college campuses around the country to find out the expectations of people in college today, those at the end of the baby boom generation.
I think the American dream is getting out of school and finding a job. That's probably the biggest problem that there is right now, is finding a job.
The American dream means to me that to be the best individual I can be and reach my potential.
Just living a comfortable life and being happy, having enough money to buy some of the things you want, and peace of mind.
The American dream used to be the white picket fence and 2 cars in the driveway. Now it's having a job and being able to survive with what you have.
And the financial success I hope to achieve. I also hope to maintain stewardship, which should be, I feel, a part of the American dream in terms of giving back to those who can't achieve what I can.
Working your way up, money, definitely money, and trying to make yourself better.
The American dream is, at least for my viewpoint as a college student, just to be successful.
Being rich and having a lot of money, and when I get older, I want to have like a Mercedes and a big house, belong to a country club and a Porsche.
Many baby boomers chose not to go to college. Sandy Hill is one of them.
Because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I felt that it was a waste to go to college if there wasn't a long-term goal involved. Looking back on it now, I realize that just having the education can help as far as a career goes, but I really thought it was a waste. I wanted to get out there and start making money.
The American dream is a standard of living. It is often pictured as a Horatio Alger-type story of rags to riches. But less than 1% of Americans are millionaires, and they are not usually the doctors, lawyers, corporate executives, entertainers, or athletes we might expect them to be. Most millionaires amass their fortunes by providing products and services such as dry cleaning operations, manufacturing, real estate, data processing, or construction. As of the end of 1986, there were 1 million millionaires in the United States, the majority being over 60 years of age and having worked 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Only 10% of the millionaires were under the age of 40, the age of the oldest baby boomer that year. That means only 1 out of every 750 baby boomers is a millionaire.
When I was 16, I had my choice to either become a doctor, a lawyer, or a professional, or a businessman. And then I weighed them all together, and I think I noticed right away that business people make a lot more money than doctors and lawyers.
So if your dream is to be a millionaire, you will have a lot of long hours and hard days ahead of you. As a point of reference, only about 14% of the baby boom generation make more than $30,000 per year, while nearly 40% earn less than $10,000 per year. With or without a college degree, baby boomers are having to work very hard at their jobs to achieve financial success. The massive size of the generation works against it. With so many vying for jobs and competing for promotions, the struggle for upward mobility is discouraging. This problem of intense competition affects baby boomers in all occupations.
For the people a few years older, the baby boom has been a real benefit. For example, they could get jobs teaching them when they were in school. They could get jobs training them when they were old enough to start college or begin work. There were so many of them, they created a huge market for products. You could get lots of jobs selling things to baby boomers. For the people behind them, it's not so clear whether they will benefit or be hurt by the baby boom. It's possible, for example, if the baby boom is so large with all this competition that they may, in a sense, be retarded in their economic growth in the society. What I mean is they may stay in jobs that a 20-year-old used to have back in the 1950s. So when the smaller groups that are 20 come along, they'll find a 28-year-old baby boomer in that job.
When I was a child, thinking about ice skating, instructing, and things like that, I thought it would be a very good career because my instructor was the only one in the area. He was well qualified, and he was a very wealthy man. But here in LA, last year, we were faced with the decision of taking a huge cut in pay or leaving it. And the idea was that while we had been independent contractors before, we were offered a salaried position, which was a whole lot less money for the same amount of work. It varies in different ways. You know, some weeks if other people would call in sick, you'd benefit, but for the most part, you could work very hard and just receive the same salary as if you didn't. And we didn't like it at all, but sitting there waiting to start were 18-year-old people who thought that that amount of money would be enough for them. It just bugs us that we had to take a cut in pay. It just hardly seems fair when everything's costing more and more to live. And it seems to be getting harder and harder just to live an average life, but it's still not impossible. But I just feel that the big gap between the rich and the poor is getting a lot wider, and there's a whole lot less middle-class people. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer.
Brian McLaren, and I live in the vicinity of Denver, Colorado. What I do is I design and build exhibits for the Denver Museum of Natural History. And my background was in fine arts, and I've worked a lot of different jobs, but I've essentially always wanted a job that would be creative and allow me a certain level of expression. And I found in this job the challenges both in the design field and in the interpersonal things that are happening here are more than adequate to keep me pretty well stimulated. And I feel very fortunate to have found this job. Interestingly, however, I can't picture myself being here for the rest of my life. The day-to-day activities of working a job and driving to and from work, and that scenario really gets a little boring to me. And to me, what's most important is my own self-fulfillment and growth. And I believe that America's a place where that can happen, but it's becoming more and more difficult to do that, given the blitz of stereotype myths that we are all subject to today. I think it's real hard to sort out what's coming from us each individually and what's coming from our cultural and our peers around us. I think that many Americans have lost track of which is which, and I find it difficult not to lose track myself.
I'm John Davis, and this is my wife Janice and our little boy Eric, and we're from Norwalk, Iowa. And we farm out on a farm just west of Norwalk. We have corn and beans, and then I raise hogs. I farrow and finish hogs. It's hard for a younger person to get started. Like say you about need somebody else to help you get started, but if you were, it's hard to get the land rented because there's a lot of older guys out there farming, and they usually want more land to make their payments, and naturally, you know, a guy renting his land would want an older farmer doing it because, you know, they think he'd have more experience, more background, you know. Usually a guy that rents his land out, he wants a guy that's got fairly decent equipment, you know, so you're not broke down and get his stuff in late on time. And I bought a new tractor. I give $35,000 for it. A disc was $8,000. I bought a planter. It was $12,000. And I had to buy a grain truck. It was a used one, $10,000 for it. And there's just, you know, miscellaneous things in your crop expense. You figure that it runs you at least $100 an acre just to put the stuff in the ground. I don't know, all that stuff adds up. Oh, I'd say at least $150,000. So really, to get started farming, you need somebody to help you. Okay, it'll at least take me another 3 years to get into the black where I should be. I still hope to acquire to buy some land someday. So really, that's what my dream is to do, and eventually get it paid for so I'll have something to retire on.
America has always been seen as the land of opportunity, but the increasing numbers of people immigrating has added an unexpected element of competition to the baby boom generation's attempt at a comfortable life.
My family moved here, 1962. February, came here by boat, and the main reason why we came here is because of the opportunity, and lifestyle is so much different, so much open, and so much relaxed here than over there. That's basically why they moved here, because it wasn't in the Netherlands, not much opportunity there. Couldn't succeed much there. Money wasn't too good, and you can move up in the business a lot quicker here than over there. And I think it's a very beautiful country to live in, and I plan on living here for the rest of my life.
We've had more immigration in the last 10 or 15 years than we'd had in the previous 4 or 5 decades, going back to World War I. So not only were there many, many people born during the baby boom, but they've had a very large number of people added into them from outside the borders of the United States. So this, again, speaking in terms of competition, means more people competing for the resources.
Específicamente, él quiere saber por qué usted vino a este país, qué realmente buscaba.
Buscaba mejor futuro para mí y mi familia.
He said he came here looking for a better future because where we lived, he's from El Salvador, and that country is a little bit poor, and so he came here for a better future, maybe for him and his family. And when he got here, it was pretty hard for him to get along here, to go around, but he tried hard and he found a job, and he's doing fine now. His dream was to have a car, a nice car. His other dream was to have his own house. He also wants that maybe someday he can have his own business. Right now he works at Spago, and a fine restaurant, and he's getting experience there, because he wants to have his own business.
As recently as the mid-1970s, there were more Filipino-born doctors in this country than there were native-born black doctors. There were more Thai doctors from Thailand in New York City than there were Thai doctors in all of Thailand. We've had a heavy immigration of skilled people. Not all immigrants are poor people who are picking your lettuce.
During the life of the baby boom generation, increasing numbers of women have joined the workforce. This has had far-reaching effects on both the family and the business world. The increased options for baby boom women has set them apart from previous generations.
A high proportion of women are now becoming professionally educated. With this June, we're going to be seeing a third of the, on average, of the classes in law schools as women, and between 20 and 25% of the medical graduates as women. Whereas in the past, it was sort of understood that the preferred role for a woman was to get married, and if she didn't get married, she was a, quote, spinster, and she became a school teacher, or she hung around a relative's house and helped with things and so forth. Today, I think we're seeing women begin to have as differentiated a set of social roles as men do.
I think that our society has created a myth. I mean, you've read a lot about it. I think society has created a myth about a woman that can have it all. And I think the one thing I've learned in the last few years is that none of us have it all. I have women friends who are professionals, who are married and feel like they are giving up something out of their marriages or giving up something with their children because of their careers, or who are giving up some standing in their career so they can spend more time with their children, or single women like myself who it's a cost. It's harder to have a normal social life and keep up with a career, or you have to compromise the career side to try to maintain the social life. And I think the myth is that you can have it all, and I don't think you can, unless you happen to be incredibly wealthy.
But the great bulk of young women are working in unfulfilling jobs, just as is true as the great bulk of young men, for that matter. They're bank tellers, or they're supermarket cashiers. And Labor Department surveys, which inquire into why they are working, elicit overwhelmingly the response to make money, not because of the kind of fulfillment that the job gives them.
Baby boomers are marrying later, divorcing more frequently, and postponing childbirth. Approximately 10% of the women are choosing never to marry at all. But the majority of baby boomers prefer married life over being single and find an equal marriage to be the most appealing, one in which the husband and wife share responsibility for work, homemaking, and child rearing.
We didn't plan on having either child, and yet at the same time it wasn't like, uh-oh, you know, now we're in trouble. It was just realizing that, well, the baby's coming, and we'll make whatever adjustments are necessary. When I'm in school, my wife's at home, and then like during the summer session, I have a 7:30 to 9:30 class every day. And so when I come home at 9:30, off she goes to work, and I'm taking care of them. That's also one of the reasons why I do the cooking and cleaning and everything else. She's working to help put me through school. So in the meantime, I'm doing as much of the work at home as possible. I'm open to having more kids, but if it doesn't work out that way, it doesn't work out that way.
I plan to follow in my father's footsteps, go into medicine, get a big house and fill it up with a lot of pretty things, you know, have a sporty car, and I think, you know, good social position. And I'm glad that it didn't take me until the point where I had a big house with a lot of things to realize that those would not fulfill me, would not satisfy me. You know, those things would not be lasting. That I realized that I was actually pursuing that career for the wrong reasons. It was for selfish purposes rather than giving. My parents, I think that they would you know, have preferred that I maybe not necessarily, you know, continue to pursue a career in medicine, but in something more than what I'm currently doing, bookkeeping, accounting type work, and you know, and perhaps you know, wait to have a family until that was established, since it's, you know, harder to continue education after you've started a family. There's so much that you really don't realize until you are a parent. And, you know, there's a lot of hard work put into it, patience, but there's so much that you receive, you know, so much joy. I know, I guess I feel like my life is more complete having become a parent.
That women are having either no children or only one child is in part, at least for some groups of women, not because they want to have no children or only one child, but because they spend a great deal of their youthful years getting an education and competing in the labor market. And it's almost inevitable that if you take women in general who are doing this, that some of them are going to lose out and not be able to either have a child or have a second child. So a lot of what we're seeing, if we put together the vital statistics and the census data and the survey data, what it adds up to is not that those women intended to be childless or have one child, but that they more or less slip into it.
I was going to grow up and be a mommy. That was about it. I didn't really think about it much, just like all the other adult women I knew, which most of them were mommies. I think about it sometimes. If I don't meet the right person to get married, what would I do? Would I decide to become a single parent? I just think that is an option that wasn't there 10 years ago. And I think as somebody who's always wanted to be a parent, it will be one that I think about if it comes to the point in time where I feel that it's now or never.
Another trend, which of course everyone is aware of, is that there has been this big rise in the divorce rate. The divorce rate went along for a long time in the 60s, 50s, 40s at about 2 per thousand. It's now up to 5 and more. One of the consequences of this has been a great rise in the proportion of children who are being brought up in single-parent households. This is much higher for blacks than it is for whites. For whites, it's on the order of about 25% of all children today are being brought up in single-parent households, and most of those households are female-headed. This in part accounts for the fact that about 35% of kids are below the poverty line now.
I married a man who was quite older than me. I guess I was looking for a father or something like that. But being 18, right out of high school, you have to, well, he wanted a mature person, and definitely I was not that. And that didn't last very long. I knew right away that this was not me. But I was pregnant at the time, so I came on home. My mother told me when I was pregnant that she says, I'll give you as much help as you can get for me, but this is your baby. You're going to have to take care of your child, and if this is what you want, this is how it's going to be. And it shocked me, you know, being 8 months pregnant. I said, well, I guess so. I'm no longer a child, and I want to be an adult, so I got to take the responsibilities.
There's two different sides to the story. If he would have stayed with me, you know, he stayed with us. Would have had a father to grow up with, someone to take me to ball games, football games. And now, since he's not here, I rely on my mother to take care of me and everything. She tries to do the best that she can, to be a father and a mother.
Maybe I really wanted to go back to school, but never could find the time. And you have to work for a living. You have to work to survive, and that's what I did.
A long time ago, when I was about 8 or 9, I thought something was missing, Seeing all my friends with fathers, and fathers and mothers, and, I only had a mother, but I thought it was okay, she's doing the best she can, So I didn't think anything was missing that much.
Back during the 50s, people got married earlier, took more of a chance because they didn't know how well their partner was going to turn out, but essentially stayed married. Now we have a situation where people seem to take more time, have a better idea of their mate's future and potential for success and so on, and yet the divorce rate has quintupled or something. So it's a fascinating idea that even though people apparently have had a chance to make a better choice, by the divorce rate they don't seem to have.
What baby boomers grew up believing was that once you got your education, found a job, and started a family, you'd be ready to buy a house. Unfortunately, economic conditions have not been favorable.
In 1950, a Levittown house sold for $7,990. The same house today sells for anywhere between $70,000 and $90,000. The family that bought that house in 1950 earned about $4,000 a year. A family living there today will be earning nearly $24,000 a year. What this means for a baby boom family about to buy a home is that 44% of their income will go toward house payments. This is extremely high when you consider that only 14% of their parents' income went toward housing. Is this fair? Well, it's basic business, supply and demand. A huge generation looking to buy their first home and not enough houses to go around.
These people, many of them were coming into the job market, forming families, thinking about buying their first homes at a time when that dream, if you could purchase it somehow, was receding on the horizon rather than approaching them.
My name is Bill Moore. Presently I'm working as a deckhand on the Staten Island Ferry in New York. My wife and I have been married almost 3 years, and in that time we've saved close to $30,000 and been looking for a house for quite a while. Right now we're living in Staten Island in an apartment with a very low rent, which helped us enable to save the 30 grand along with my wife working. We basically lived off my salary and banked hers, which made all the difference in the world. Our dream is basically what our parents' dream was, only to me it seems like their way of getting it was much easier. I know my father's instance, his mortgage payment was $80 a month. And for me, all they do is add zeros to that number, and it goes on forever. Now, $80 25 years ago was a lot of money. $800 this day and age, to me, is a lot of money. Some people, it doesn't seem that much. But being a civil service employee, it sure as hell is almost out of reach for me. So a second job is now a fact of life, because I really don't want my wife working. Her job right now is motherhood. To us, that's more important than bringing home some money. Not that I mind doing it. It's all for a goal that we want. It's our American dream. It's what we wanted to do. And we have to make certain sacrifices to do it, which I'm really not complaining about. I'm just kind of frustrated about why I should have to do this. My wife's point is, you should be able to go to one job 5 days a week, bring home the amount of money to live the way we want to live. And I don't think, we're not asking for a lot. We don't want to live extravagantly. We're just accustomed to living the way we want to. I'm not asking for help from anybody. We're willing to do it ourselves. Just give me the chance.
We find that lots of couples now are unable to buy their first home until a later age than was the case in the past. And also those, I would say, unfortunate ones who do not have two family earners, the traditional couple with a working husband and a wife who's home with a couple of kids, may find that they are totally unable to afford home ownership because they don't have the income.
Sandy and Jody Hill, in their mid-20s and both having worked since high school, have been able to achieve their dream of owning their own home.
Where I grew up, it was a small town, steel mills, coal mines, and a lot of people went and had their 4-year degree, and that's where they ended up anyway. So why waste the 4 years?
Most of my friends don't have as much. The ones that have an education are just barely starting their careers. I seem to have more than most of my friends, and probably know more where I'm going than they are.
I feel good about my life right now. Everything's fallen into place, been fortunate. Just got married, just bought a house, and we're ready to start a family.
Because I've been working since I was 16, I've been able to save money. I have just learned how to spend my money wisely.
My life compared to my parents is almost embarrassing for what we have and what they had. Their values were to feed and clothe 9 kids, where I don't even think about feeding or clothing anybody or going on vacation. Just do it.
I think I'll feel really good if I have a couple of kids, and really it'll make my life have a lot more purpose.
I've thought about buying a house. That's about all I could afford to do is think about it. I don't have the money to, I don't make the kind of money to put for a down payment, and I couldn't carry the monthly payments on what I make. So, and I don't anticipate a major promotion in my line of work. So yes, I've thought about buying a house, but it doesn't seem a possibility. No, it doesn't seem a possibility to buy one. I mean, maybe I could inherit one or something.
Having a job and owning a home do not guarantee future security.
Although our parents' lives are made easier by Social Security, Medicare, and pension funds, they have the benefit of the larger baby boom generation paying into the system.
However, when the baby boomers start to retire in 25 years, there will not be enough people to support them the way their parents are living today. In fact, recent cutbacks mean that the baby boom retirees will have paid more into the system than they will ever get back.
At present, the 65 and older population is about 12% of the population. By 2030, that'll be up to 21%. In other words, 1 in every 5 Americans in 2030 will probably be over age 65. And so in a very short span, we have an enormous jump in the number of retirement age people. And this is why the Social Security Administration, pension officials, many groups are concerned with how can we deal with this larger group of people. Can the working age population handle such a large dependency burden?
The baby boomers are paying an unprecedented proportion of their income today to support the current older generation in retirement. Basically, 1 out of every $7 they earn goes to the Social Security Administration. And for that sacrifice, the baby boomers will expect to be supported in turn by the very small and so far very poor generation that follows. If current trends continue, that expectation will have to be disappointed. There's just no way that you can get blood from a stone. We're doing very little to make sure that our children do grow up to be more affluent than we are today. Currently, we've got 1 out of 5 children living in poverty, and those kids are going to most likely grow up to be poor adults. And so far from actually supporting the baby boomers in old age, they're more likely to be competing for social resources in the future.
Sibby and Perry Minton were married on March 21st, 1953. While he worked for a major corporation, she stayed at home and raised 4 children. On May 1st, 1984, they began their retirement. Today, they are enjoying the benefits of their long-term plans, yet having to cope with unforeseen difficulties.
Well, from the very first day, I knew I was going to retire. That was my real goal in working. And so we tried to put a little money away. But primarily, I selected my career with the idea that it would be secure and that it would have the benefits that would allow me to retire without starving to death. Social Security, the way I understand it, was designed to help. Not to provide full support, and a lot of people have misunderstood that, and it's been hard on them. I think I did understand what it was designed to do, and therefore it is a very nice supplement. It certainly takes the pressure off financial problems.
Those were our plans to travel and camp. We'd like to camp, do as much camping as we could. We've done some of it. We've been limited lately because Perry's mother now lives with us. It's put things on hold. We can't leave the house too often. We can't go away for a long period without making elaborate plans for somebody to stay with her. She's 90 years old. When you have the children, Perry was out going to work. He had a certain amount of freedom, but I felt very confined to the house, and which I am now. At the time, though, I could pick up the children under my arms and take them with me, and I can't do that now. So there is a difference, and yet it's very much like having a child again.
We asked Sibby and Perry what, if any, plans their 4 children had for retirement.
I rather doubt it. Most of them haven't found their place in life yet. One daughter, our oldest, is teaching, and the others are still in school, whose ages range from 25 to 30.
I really don't know. I'm not sure they're planning for a working career yet, but I'm sure they've thought about it. They have paid attention and seen that ours has proved to be pretty successful so far. We're only 2.5 years into it, but I'm sure it has made an impression.
Our daughter, who is teaching, yes, she is taking plans for retirement, because I know she has signed up for various things through the teaching that will help her. Now she said that, just remember, Mom, you're not going to live with me when you get old.
Their oldest son, Jeff, voices his thoughts on retirement.
Yeah, I've thought about that quite a bit. As I was coming up through high school, I always assumed that a person would, go straight into college, get a degree, get married, buy a house, settle down, stay in one job for a long time, build up a pension, and retire. I've since decided that that's not the way to go. I don't know why, but I've put a lot less interest or a lot less importance on saving up a tremendous amount of money. I guess I have a bit of a, I'm not very optimistic about the outcome, so I think that I will try to enjoy myself now. And if I have enough money in the end to retire on, I do, and if I don't, well, that's what happens. I see so many people that spend a great deal of time saving for retirement, saving and saving and saving. And then when they get there, they're too old to enjoy it, or they kick off just before they do retire, and I can't see any point to that.
The worse off you are, the more likely it is that you are only covered by Social Security. Most workers now are covered by Social Security, so our generation will be covered entirely, basically. But the people who don't earn much now are going to be the people who aren't going to earn much in retirement, and they're the ones that can't afford to contribute to IRAs now, can't afford to put away money in any other form for themselves for retirement, and aren't in jobs where there are private pensions.
Social Security probably will move in the direction of reverting to what it was originally intended to be, which was a floor below which you didn't want anybody to sink. But it would not necessarily, and it was not originally intended to be something that allowed you to spend your time playing golf and watching as the world turns. It's a way to prevent elderly people from being impoverished. And anything above that will be the fruits of their own effort.
The American dream has been more difficult to achieve for the baby boom generation than it was for their parents. And for today's children, the generation following the baby boom, we can only speculate what their lives will be like. Lee Coben conducts an after-school class in samba music. We visited with the children to find out what they wanted to be when they grow up and what the American dream means to their young minds.
I want to be either a lawyer or an architect. I want to be a teacher when I grow up. Fireman.
Electrician or mechanic.
When I grow up, I want to be an engineer. A professional dancer.
I want to be an architect.
Engineer.
Everyone recalls the problems we had when the first members of the baby boom started reaching school age, because we had to build new schools, find new teachers, and so on. When they reached high school, when they reached college, and so on. And then following that group, though, we've continually had this situation where then there's a sharp decline in the population right behind them because of the smaller birth groups in the late 60s and during the 1970s. So then now you have school closings, you have colleges worried about will they be able to find enough students to fill their classrooms right now. The military is worried about will there be enough recruits for the armed forces in the future. People who employ young workers are worried because there's a drop in that pool also.
I think they're going to have to be responsible to a much greater extent for how their lives work out economically than would have been the case a generation or two ago because of the developing demographics, but also because I think of a developing political mood in this country. And those political moods are the trickiest ones to forecast because we don't know that our view of the world today is one that will be valid 20 years from now. One's views today are shaped by Reaganomics and by the fact that inflation, which was very bad, has been brought down to respectable levels. But the price has been that people have had to take more responsibility for their own economic well-being.
Well, I think the future of today's children hangs very much on how well the baby boomers prepare for their retirement. It's not hard to envision a scenario in which the baby boomers, having been downwardly mobile for most of their lives, approach old age in a condition of real desperation and anger and form a senior power movement of the likes we've never seen. And if that happens, I think the very small and so far very poor generation behind them has a lot to be worried about. We're talking about the prospect of Social Security taxes maybe going from 22 to 42% of income, and I don't think that kind of scenario can come about without there being a real conflict between the generations in the next century.
What I want is that people could be treated equally.
A good future so I can have a family and not worry about a lot of things.
A good future and a happy life.
Want peace. Get family and don't be poor as other poor kids.
To be free.
I want money, a house, a nice one.
We've looked at education, the workforce, housing, families, and retirement, the heart of the American dream. With this information, we can find out how we fit in and where we are going. And now we can look at our lives with more understanding so that we can share it with our children to help them build a more positive and realistic future.
Nice wife, nice children, but people are shying away from that, in my opinion. I don't know what the dream is. You know, someone might have to tell me.
And I do think that the American dream still exists. I don't think that there are that many people who have become so cynical as to think that there is no such thing as an American dream. I think it's a chance for people to have an opportunity to live life as they would like to live it.
I'm not really sure there is an American dream anymore because it's hard. Well, it's kind of hard to make an assumption that there is an American dream, but I don't think it exists anymore.
I don't think the American dream that maybe my parents had in the 50s of the 2 cars, nice house, and chicken in every pot is necessarily obtainable by everybody anymore. But, and I think even in the sense of attaining the freedom to do what you want to do, we're losing that. Just in my lifetime, I see it's slipping away more and more.
To summarize it, the American dream is to fulfill the destiny that God set forth for you.
I'm concerned that the American dream is not what it was then. I believe if you asked people, do you expect to have a better life than your parents had? I'm afraid many people would say, no, I do not expect to. Or if you asked them, do you expect to die a natural death? People would say, I'm afraid no. Many would say, I expect to die in a nuclear war. I'm afraid of the consequences of this kind of attitude. These things may never happen, the nuclear war and so on. We hope it doesn't. But if people have that world view, have that view of things, it's possible that they go, why bother? Why try to do better now? Why worry about having any dream at all? Maybe I should enjoy myself now, because who knows? My life only has a lead time of about 15 minutes before the bombs could come.
One of the things that is probably going to distinguish baby boomers as in contrast to their parents will be that a much smaller proportion of their lives will be spent with children in the household. Now, this is due to two things. One is, of course, that their own life expectancy is longer, so they're just going to be alive longer without children. The second thing is that they have fewer children. So having children in the household is going to be a very small segment of people's lives, maybe a very significant segment and one that means a great deal to them, but it's not going to be the long period of time that it was for their parents.
If you were born, I would say, not at the beginning of the baby boom generation, the late 40s, but right dead center in the middle of it, or perhaps toward the end of it, let's say the late 50s, after all of the bad effects associated with that numerous generation had built up and intensified all the pressure, and then one came along, having been born toward the end of the 1950s, when the things that were going to go wrong had pretty much gone wrong, and then you showed up on the scene. Wherever you went, it was raining. Nothing would turn out right. You go to college, work your way through college, that American dream, drive a cab part-time, and what you find out is you get the college degree and it entitles you to drive a cab full-time. So then you get into the drug generation, the generation of protesting about the Vietnam War, and a whole lot of other influences that compounded this and led to a lot of disillusionment. And I think that would be my choice of a time when, if you could make the choice, it would be better to have been born some other time.
An hedonic treadmill. That is, people are always trying to achieve a dream which always is getting more affluent. So no one really ends up being any better. Therefore, my view of the American dream, I'm afraid, is a rather skeptical one. It's that we're all caught in a treadmill, and I'm not, even though I perceive the situation this way, I'm not exempting myself from this pursuit. We're all caught on this treadmill, trying to achieve dreams that we never realize. Our children end up doing the same thing and end up being equally unsuccessful.
So they really, as a generation, almost couldn't succeed. Whereas if you look at their parents, because they were such a small group of people, they almost couldn't fail. And in neither case was it individual level factors so much as generational size factors. So you have a generation that can succeed and a generation that can fail. And the first generation may feel very good psychologically because they did succeed. They may think it was their own hard work and good luck. And the second generation, their children, may be working just as hard but can't succeed. And they blame themselves. They somehow feel that they failed.
With this information, we can find out where we belong and where we fit in, and look at our lives with more understanding so that we can share it with our children and help them build a more positive and realistic future.